Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here and welcome to this vlog for the final Boom Goes the Dynamite story, Boredom of the Doctor. So this story basically sees, in the pre-titles at least, the Doctor fighting the devil and eventually being able to save the Earth. However, he realises that the titles haven't rolled yet, so then we get to the post-title bits, so the actual story, and it's basically the Doctor ranting to Christie about how, basically confessing and ranting about how boring she is, because he's basically gotten fed up with her by this point. I think Phoenix Smith got this down a little bit in Last Laugh, but it's mostly a Billy and Joel thing that Dynamite pretty much hates Christie. And yeah, and it's about time he finally got round to ranting to her. He basically lets it all out. But it turns out that Christie just thinks this is all a test. So the Doctor just gives up and says, yeah, it's a test. Much to his distraughtness, I suppose. And so Christie's going to be sticking around for a bit longer, which isn't going to make him very happy. So something new should hopefully be a bit of a cheer up after something not so much new. And I say most of the story is pretty much John Granson and Crystal D talking, especially John pretty much ranting about Christie's. So yeah, they both do a great job, as does Billy as the devil. He does a very good job, and Dynamite is so cool in pretty much saving the day. It's just a shame that we didn't see the start of that adventure, but in order for this one to work, it makes sense. And I also think said story pretty much is the point. The story pretty much is showing the Doctor pretty much ranting to Christie after he's just finished an adventure before the titles even rolled. But that being said, there isn't that much of a story here, so it's not as amazing as the other ones in this wave. And so I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. It's just them talking. Although the stuff in the pre-titles is brilliant and it's really amazing. And yeah, it sounds really cool and they've done a great job. It's just that it's not that much, that's all. So here's my ranking of the Boom Goes the Dynamite stories quickly. We've got More of the Daleks, Tron, The Last Laugh, Fonz and Creatures, and Boredom of the Doctor. So number 5, I'm sorry to say, it is Boredom of the Doctor. After re-listening to this, as well as the other stories in this wave, this one is pretty much the weakest on a story basis. I even thought, even if without even that being said, it'd still be an enjoyable story because of the pre-titles, but in the end I just thought, not so much. I think Last Laugh was actually better this time round than it had been before, so that's why Boredom's gone down a bit. Number 4 is The Last Laugh. And this one's gone up a little bit. I think it was, actually no, I think I gave it an 8, I think, yeah. But I think in the ranking it's gone up a bit because Boredom's gone down. The score-wise has gone down a bit. But Last Laugh is still a lot of fun. I just don't think the story structure is brilliantly done, but it's still really funny audio, and it's a nice change of direction of the audios to not be as so brutal. Moving away from that and going into a bit more of a humorous. And so, speaking of those brutal moments, number 3 is More of the Daleks. Now, this one's not moved, and I don't think the top 2 have either, but this one has had a score change. It's gone up a little bit in the score numbering, but in terms of a rankings position, actually I think it might have been, I think Boredom the Doctor might have been around here, and now it's dropped to 5th. So this one's gone up, and it's still an enjoyable story. It's very good and got some great moments, and it's not as violent as, say, Convolution or Blobotron, and I think Blobotron's a bit more violent throughout the story. It's definitely scarier. So anyway, moving on to number 2, which is a brilliant story, Fondness and Creatures. Now, the fact that it's a first-person retrospective story and pretty much based on Love and Monsters in a way, with a dash of Family of Blood towards the end, is brilliant. It's such a great story. Also, I forgot to mention the fruit pastel meeting at the start is with him, I think it was with a milk float. That ties into a mention in War of the Doctors, where in part 5, where he crashes a milk float into the post office, which I think, and it's also mentioned in the Sorry State of Affairs, and also the fruit pastel doctor gets another milk float or something in part 6 of War of the Doctors, so it's tying in that story moment. Also implies that the character, who I called Ant in the vlog, because the narrator's called Antonio, so Ant, or the character I called Ant, lived in Pastelbury, or near Pastelbury anyway, maybe in the next village or just outside. He did have a neighbour though, so maybe it is the next village or one of the outer streets. Anyway, and yeah, it's still a brilliant story. My only really nitpick is that it's let down by the fact that it tries to be a comedic end after a depressing ending for Ant's character. Yeah, it just doesn't sit as right. And finally, number 1. This one is pretty much, I don't want to say pretty much perfect, but it is definitely one of my favourites across the entire Aimless Wanderings. And that is Blobotron. Oh man, this is such a great story. It's well written, it's well paced. Okay, the first 10-ish minutes, okay, between the end of the titles and once they get to Blobbyland, there is quite a lot of the attention is focused on the Doctor taking Christy home and then Christy coming back in the TARDIS, but then they eventually arrive at Blobbyland and the plot begins proper. We also have the most brutal pre-credit scene, but it also ties into the plot, and it's actually the best one, probably, as well. The best brutal pre-credit scene. It's probably also the best pre-credit scene of the entire lot, with the possible exception of Boredom the Doctors has the best one. But it's still really good. It's it's actually quite fun, and also you've got the perspective of the 3 teenagers. That's interesting, and yeah, Mr. Blobby is a formidable foe. Noel Edmonds, just would have liked to have seen a bit more of him, or heard a bit more of him, but he's still interesting, funny. Same with the soldiers, a bit more of them would have been nice, but still. And it's just a ton of fun. Ooh, sorry. Yeah, Blobotron, it's great. It's a shame it's the second episode, because this would have been a fantastic either series opener or season finale or middle episode. But episode 2 works okay. Yeah, again, I think the Joel stories should have been the opening and closing stories, and the Billy one should have been 2 and 4. Because I think Joel's ones are the more notable stories in this wave, mainly because how good they are, and also because of their plots. So, yep, my ranking is, remind you, is 5 Boredom the Doctor, 4 The Last Laugh, 3 More of the Daleks, 2 Fondness and Creatures, and 1 Blobotron. So that's it from my vlog for Boredom the Doctor and my ranking of Boom Goes the Dynamite stories. Next time we'll be getting to a very special audio, the quintessential Doctor's post-regeneration story. The Dark at the Start. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel.